Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Highest score. Chapter 11. Nog was waiting for Jake in the mothership's transporter room, grinning from ear to enormous ear. "Nog, I was beginning to think you'd never beam me back up," Jake said, rubbing his hands down his muddy uniform. "What happened?" Every muscle in his body was still tensed and ready for action. After the dangers he'd faced on the planet, he found his friend's sharp-toothed grin a bit irritating. "I almost got killed down
Tell me later,
Nog said.
"I've got something to show you. You'll never believe it."
He rushed Jake down the corridors to the gaming room, where an amazing scene was unfolding. The gamers from every shift, all 200 of them, had crowded into the simulation room, angry. Even so, Jake and Nog had never known the room to be as quiet as it was now. No phaser blasts issued from the simulation console speakers, no lights flashed, no chimes tinkled overhead as the computers tallied scores. All of the outraged players had switched off their terminals in protest. A low-pitched, grumbling murmur rippled through the group as the young gamers converged on one corner of the large chamber. Quiltek stood backed into the corner, head held high, an unreadable expression on his bird-like face. Only 3 of his guards, 2 Andorians and a Gorn, were anywhere in evidence. The outnumbered guards looked around with nervous uncertainty, afraid to start shooting. Nog jumped onto a chair and addressed the group.
"Now's that my partner is safely back from the planet."
He pulled a dripping and muddy Jake up beside him, and the gamers cheered.
"I think it's time we made a few things clear to the management of this mining station."
Jake cleared his throat and spoke in a loud voice. "What you're doing here is wrong, Quiltek. People live on that planet, and that's their home you're destroying. We demand to be returned to our homes at once," Dobb added. "We won't do any more of your dirty work," another young humanoid said, crossing her arms over her chest. "You lied to us." "Yes, we're on strike," Dobb said.
"Let's discuss this in a reasonable manner,"
Quiltek warbled in a soothing tone.
"You are mining company employees after all, but I'm afraid that unless you agree to sit down, stay calm, and renegotiate, I will have to suspend all payments of accrued wages until—"
Just then, the mothership's computer drowned out any further conversation with an emergency announcement. "Federation ship approaching at high speed. A Starfleet runabout requesting immediate docking. Mr. Quiltek, your presence is required at once in the command center." Grudgingly, the angry gamers led him out of his corner. "We want transport home, Quiltek," Dobb repeated, calling after him. Whistling in agitation, Quiltek hurried toward a lift. Nog stood on a chair so that everyone could see him despite his short stature.
"Let's go greet our visitors,"
he shouted, and he led his companions out of the simulator room. Jake followed, asking Nog who was on the approaching ship, but the Ferengi said only,
"You'll see."
Just outside the mothership's main docking port, Nog and Jake squeezed into the reception area with as many other gamers as could fit. They heard the soft thunk of metal meeting metal. A slight shudder coursed through the floor under their feet. A moment after the hiss of equalizing pressures, a thick steel door rolled aside to reveal a fuming Commander Benjamin Sisko and an equally furious Rom and Quark. "Dad!" Jake shouted, and he ran to his father. Nog was right behind him, hurrying over to his father and uncle, ducking low. Rom made a show of scolding his son, but both of the older Ferengi seemed secretly pleased. Commander Sisko hugged his son hard, and Jake felt a tremendous relief that his father had arrived. "We got Nog's emergency message pod and came right away," Sisko said. "But it looks as you've managed to wrap up most of the trouble yourselves." Just then, Quiltek marched into the receiving area and confronted them.
"Why have you come here? This is not Federation space. You have no jurisdiction over this planet." "My nephew sent for me," Quark replied, stepping forward, "and rightly so. You have offended Ferengi honor. Perhaps you're not familiar with our rules of acquisition? My nephew has been trained in these principles since his youth. Nog, Please familiarize Mr. Quiltech with rule number 16.
Nog snapped to attention and recited with confidence.
A deal is a deal.
Quark shrugged eloquently.
It seems that you decided not to honor the business deal you made with my nephew and the human boy.
The Ferengi's expression was almost apologetic, as if he had no choice in the matter.
They're only children. They've lost nothing but a few days of their time, Quiltech said. Besides, why should your Ferengi customs matter to me?
He asked with an audible sneer. Before Quark could answer, Cisco set Jake aside and glared over the heads of the other gamers at the bird-like alien.
Quiltech,
he said in an icy, threatening tone. Quiltech flinched at the power of Cisco's voice. The commander of Deep Space Nine stalked forward to stand beside Quark. The veins on his neck standing out like indium tensacles? What? Sorry. I don't even know what I just read. The mass of kids in front of him parted. No one wanted to get in his way. Quiltech straightened to his full height to face Cisco.
I cannot allow you to disrupt my mining operations in this manner. Please take your young and leave before I am forced to summon my station's guards.
You mean the dozen guards we saw in there, with a couple of guys who looked like you? Cisco asked, pointing toward the docking bay. They climbed aboard a shuttle and left, towing a full ore hauler, just after we docked.
Quiltech's face turned a strange shade of yellow-green. Cisco nodded.
You have a lot of explaining to do, mister, he said. We have Starfleet reinforcements on the way, but perhaps we should see if we can work out a resolution before they get here.
A resolution? Quiltech said, but we have done nothing to...
The uproar of the betrayed gamers drowned out the rest of his words. Commander Cisco motioned for silence.
You know it is forbidden to steal the resources of an inhabited planet, Cisco said. The Federation takes its laws against strip mining planets very seriously.
But this planet is in the Gamma Quadrant and therefore not under the jurisdiction of...
Quiltech began indignantly.
You are licensed through the United Federation of Planets, Cisco said, and therefore bound by our laws. I have contacted the Federation Miners Guild and Trading Commission. If you refuse to comply with our laws, then your license will be revoked, and you will be unable to sell your ore anywhere in Federation space.
Quiltech's face took on a shrewd look as Cisco began ticking his demands off on his fingers.
First, you must cease all operations on the planet below immediately.
Jake tugged on his father's elbow. Dad, we already made a good start on that one. Cisco laughed.
I'll bet you did.
He turned back to Quiltech and scowled.
Second, when the Starfleet ships arrive, I want you to arrange and pay for safe passage home for all of these young employees.
And full wages in Latinum, Quark added, as guaranteed in their contracts. Your mining company must pay in full.
But, Quiltech interrupted, rubbing his horned claws together. What if I am willing to give up my license? Your demands become meaningless. Quark gave him a measuring look, bent his bald head toward Quiltech's and lowered his voice.
Maybe you're ignorant of Ferengi customs, but you must know our reputation as traders with many connections.
When Quiltech whistled and nodded in acknowledgement, Quark continued.
If you do not honor your deal with my nephew and every one of these talented young people, he snapped, you won't sell so much as a microgram of your ore through legal or illegal channels. Believe me, you won't be able to show your beak on the other side of the wormhole without our knowing it.
Cisco nodded. Then he sternly pointed a finger at Quiltech again.
And to ensure that your company never pulls something like this again, you will have a Federation inspector on your mothership at all times. But before you start any new mining operations, Quiltech, your first order of business will be to make reparations on the planet below, replanting their jungles, helping the world recover from the damage you have done.
Jake didn't need a universal translator to understand the tone of defeat in Quiltech's wailing whistle. Back on Deep Space Nine, Jake and Nog took the last few days of their school vacation to settle back into the normal routine of the station. They walked along the promenade to the entrance of the arcade. Jake stopped to admire the glowing marquee, with her name still displayed in clear lights, showing the highest score they had ever achieved in the simulator chamber. Nog stood at his side.
Think we can beat that score, Jake? He asked, his small eyes flashing. Think we should try?
Jake looked at him, then back up at the score display. Nog seemed nervous and uncertain. Both of them shook their heads at the same moment. No, Jake said, sighing. I think I've had enough simulations to last me a long time. Why don't we go watch the ships coming in instead?
Sounds good to me,
Nog agreed without hesitation. Together they went off to observe the docking ports of Deep Space Nine, leaving the arcade behind.